Everyone at the wedding was dressed to impress: designer gowns, expensive watches, and polished shoes tapping against marble floors. The venue itself sparkled like a dream, and the gifts piled on the table screamed luxury. But in the middle of all the glamour, one small, plain-wrapped box sat quietly, almost unnoticed. No shiny bow, no brand-name bag. Just a handwritten tag that read, "Asterisk for Sarah and Daniel from Myra." Asterisk whispers quickly followed. Some guests chuckled under their breath, others raised their brows in silent judgment. Myra, the bride's childhood friend, wasn't rich or flashy like the others. Many had forgotten she was even invited. Her gift didn't match the occasion, they thought. How could she show up with something like that? Someone muttered near the bar. But Myra stood silently, her eyes kind and calm, knowing something. The rest, did in single quotes. Sarah, the bride, saw the gift and smiled, though even she didn't fully understand what it held. Not yet. Daniel gave it a polite glance, placing it beside the mountain of expensive boxes. No one knew that this simple wedding gift would soon overshadow every diamond necklace, cash envelope, and crystal vase. What Myra had given was more than money could buy. Was rooted in love, sacrifice, and a story that would leave the entire room in stunned silence as the evening carried on. Laughter filled the hall, and music echoed across the gardens. But when the couple finally unwrapped Myra's gift, the atmosphere shifted. Gasps replaced gossip. Eyes widened. And those who once mocked her found themselves speechless. What exactly was inside that simple box? And why did it leave even the proudest guests shaken? You're about to find out, but nothing will prepare you for what's coming next. A few hours before the ceremony, Myra had walked quietly into the hall, unnoticed by most. She wore a modest blue dress, ironed neatly, but nothing like the glittering gowns around her. Some guests gave her a passing glance, clearly unsure who she was. She didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the high-profile crowd, but Sarah had insisted she come. They'd grown up on the same street, shared old textbooks, and sat on the school roof after tough days, while life had taken them in different directions. Sarah into corporate success and Myra into caregiving and part-time jobs. The bond between them had never fully broken. Myra hadn't been able to afford anything from the couple's online registry. Everything on the list felt far out of reach. Still, she wanted to give them something real, something meaningful. So she spent days carefully preparing what she believed would be the most personal gift they'd receive. She wrapped it with care, using paper she'd saved from an old birthday, and wrote the note by hand. She didn't need it to stand out, just to be understood later. As the couple began opening their gifts in front of close friends and family, laughter and cheers filled the room. One by one, fancy gadgets, travel vouchers, and customized home decor were unwrapped. Then came Myra's box. Daniel picked it up, eyebrows raised, while Sarah paused. A few guests leaned in, half curious, half dismissive. Someone whispered, "Maybe it's homemade cookies," followed by a soft chuckle. But as the lid came off, the room fell into a strange hush. Sarah's hands trembled slightly. Daniel's smile faded. What lay inside wasn't flashy, but it carried a weight, a truth that couldn't be ignored. And that's when everything started to shift. Inside the box was a small, leather-bound journal. Worn at the edges, its cover faded with time. Tucked beside it was a folded letter, Myra's handwriting, again, neat and careful. Sarah picked up the journal slowly, flipping through the pages, her expression shifting with every word she read. The guests watched in confusion, whispering to each other, trying to understand what was so important about an old notebook. Daniel leaned over to glance, but Sarah clutched it closer. Her eyes locked on a specific page. The journal wasn't Myra's. It had belonged to Sarah's late mother. Lost years ago during a house move, everyone thought it had been thrown out, with old boxes, and Sarah had quietly mourned its disappearance. But there it was, filled with notes, personal messages, and even sketches from when Sarah was a child. Mira had found it years ago at a local thrift shop, hidden among donated items. She kept it safe all this time, waiting for the right moment to return it. That moment was now. But what caught Sarah off guard wasn't just the return of something so priceless. It was what her mother had written. Hidden between heartfelt entries were confessions, secrets about their family's past that Sarah had never known, hints about financial troubles her father had buried, mentions of someone named Elena, someone Sarah had never heard of. The pieces didn't make sense yet, but they were enough to leave her shaken. Meanwhile, some guests grew uneasy, sensing a shift in energy. Daniel noticed Sarah's distant stare and tried to ask what was wrong, but she couldn't answer. Her hands trembled as she folded the letter Mira had written. It wasn't just a gift, it was a door opening to a truth long buried. And not everyone in that room was ready for what might come out. Sarah stood frozen, the journal pressed tightly to her chest. Her mind raced, trying to piece together what she had just read. The name Elena kept echoing in her thoughts. Pages earlier, her mother had written about a child asterisk, the one they never told Sarah about. Her heart pounded as she remembered the hush-hush arguments between her parents when she was younger. The locked drawers, the missing photos. Could this be real? Could she have a sister she never knew about? Daniel's voice cut through the noise in her head. Sarah, what is it? You're scaring me? But she couldn't speak. Not with everyone watching. Mira, still standing quietly near the back, lowered her gaze, knowing she'd just shaken the foundation of a family in front of 100 guests. Some guests began shifting in their seats, sensing that this simple wedding gift had revealed something far bigger than expected. A few even picked up on the name Elena as Sarah whispered it under her breath. Whispers turned into murmurs. Even the photographer stopped clicking, unsure whether to keep filming or put the camera down. The celebration had turned into something else, something no one could quite define. Then came the letter. Mira had written it with love, but also with brutal honesty. She explained how she found the journal, how she'd read it out of worry, and how she'd kept it safe, unsure if Sarah ever wanted to know what was inside. Mira apologized not for finding it, but for waiting so long. At the bottom of the letter was a final note. Asterisk. I met Elena once. She asked me not to say anything. But I couldn't let this wedding happen without the truth. Asterisk. That sentence hit like lightning. Guests turned to each other in disbelief. And sorrow she looked. Like she might faint. Sarah's knees nearly gave out as she clutched the journal and letter tighter. Daniel caught her just in time, his face pale with confusion. Sarah, who is Elena? He asked quietly, but the question hung in the air like a loaded secret. Before she could respond, Mira stepped forward. For the first time that night. Every eye was on her, not with judgment now, but with a mix of fear and curiosity. I didn't mean to bring this to light like this. Mira began, her voice steady but low. But there's something else you need to know. Elena isn't just your sister, Sarah. She's here, at this wedding. The room went dead silent. Sarah's eyes widened, scanning the crowd like a storm was about to hit. A guest gasped, another dropped a glass. Daniel looked around in disbelief. What do you mean, she's here? He asked, stepping toward Mira. Mira hesitated, then said, she came with the catering team. She didn't want to reveal herself, but after reading your mother's words, she had to see you, even if only from a distance. Suddenly, the tension in the air became unbearable. Guests began whispering more frantically, turning their heads toward the catering staff at the back of the room. A woman in her late 20s stood frozen, tray still in hand, eyes locked with Sarah's across the hall. She looked familiar, too. Familiar, same eyes. Same nervous smile. Sarah dropped the letter. Her breathing grew shallow. Why wouldn't she tell me herself? She whispered. Myra looked down, her voice barely audible. Because your father made her promise never to. At that moment, the entire story, the wedding, the gift, the journal, became more than just a surprise. It became a confrontation with a past no one expected to face on what was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. The room stood still as Sarah stepped away from Daniel, slowly walking toward the catering staff. The woman with the tray Elena stood frozen, her eyes wide, brimming with unshed tears. Sarah stopped a few feet away, her voice trembling. Is it true? Alina nodded, lips pressed tight, as if even breathing would break the fragile moment. I didn't mean to crash your wedding, she whispered, but I needed to see you. Just once. Sarah's chest tightened. So many emotions battled inside Dongjer, confusion, sadness, but above all, a strange sense of recognition. Without another word, she pulled Alina into a quiet embrace. The guests, unsure whether to applaud or retreat, watched in stunned silence as the two sisters stood together for the first time. Daniel, clearly overwhelmed, ran a hand through his hair, trying to process everything. Then Mira, still holding her spot by the gift table, said softly, There's something else you both need to know. All eyes turned again. Your mother knew this day might come. That's why she left behind something in the journal. Key. Sarah looked down at the journal in her hand and flipped to the back cover. Taped inside was a small brass key with a note. Asterisk for the truth when you're ready. Asterisk on the note was an address one neither Sarah nor Alina recognized. Myra continued, It's a storage unit. Your mother rented it before she passed. I didn't open it. I thought that choice should be yours. The sisters exchanged a glance, stunned. The family secrets weren't over. The simple wedding gift that everyone once mocked had not only reunited long-lost sisters, it had unlocked the beginning of a deeper story. And as Sarah clutched the key in her hand, she realized, This wedding day wasn't an ending, was just the start. A week after the wedding, Sarah and Alina stood side by side outside the small storage unit, the brass key in Sarah's hand shaking slightly, with Mira beside them for quiet support. They unlocked the door together. Inside were a few dusty boxes carefully labeled in their mother's handwriting. There were old photo albums, letters, and a collection of voice recordings messages their mother had left behind for both of them. In one, she explained everything. How Alina had been born during a time of family crisis. How their father had insisted on keeping her hidden to protect their image. And how their mother had lived with that heartbreak for years. The truth was painful, but it brought clarity. Sarah finally understood the weight her mother had carried, and why Myra's gift was more than just a forgotten journal. It was the bridge between two lives that were meant to meet. In the days that followed, Sarah and Elena spent hours getting to know each other, sharing childhood memories from different worlds, comparing lives shaped by very different choices. Daniel, though shaken, supported Sarah through it all, learning that love sometimes means making room for the unexpected. As for Myra, her quiet strength became something the whole family came to admire. She had been mocked for her simple wedding gift, but in the end, it held the greatest value of all. The story reminded everyone that not all gifts come wrapped in gold or glitter. Sometimes, the most priceless things arrive in silence, carried by someone who truly cares. And on a day meant for love and beginnings, a lost sister was found. A mother's voice was heard once more, and a simple gesture changed everything. Because sometimes the smallest box holds the biggest truth.